although they were created as cannon fodder for the dragon armies. One draconian stood head and shoulder above the rest, wanting a better future for his people. So strap on your harness and start digging a latrine as we dig deep into one of the most magnificent draconians ever to walk Krynn. Now Kang was created in the first batch of draconians who spawned from a bronze dragon egg. Those forsaken souls were taught to fend for themselves, fight for everything to survive, killing each other for a piece of bread, as only the strong would survive. Now throughout this turmoil, Kang started to show his aptitude for leadership, and his fellow nestmates looked up to him. Eventually, Kang served under Lord Aryakas in Sanction, leading his own draconian unit. Now 4 years after their creation, Kang attempted to learn engineering in an attempt to embarrass one of the human engineers. Kang put all of his aptitude into it, and he excelled in his schooling, beating the human engineer that embarrassed him previously, and he even ended up killing said human. And after his tutelage, he deserted from the dragon armies. During his travels, Kang overheard a Shivak Draconian and a few of his comrades talking about a treasure. Boldly stepping up to the Shivak, he told them that he could build them a bridge that will safely take them over the chasm that was between them and said treasure. Slith was impressed with Kang's audacity and asked him to join their group, and under Kang's leadership, they built a rope bridge and fought their way past Dwarven skeletal warriors and captured the treasure that happened to be barrels of dwarf spirit. Taking the dwarf spirit with them, they decided to sell it for 1 steel piece per cup. And after that ordeal, Kang leaves the group, continuing on his own. Eventually though, both Kang and Slith get together again and they rejoin the Dragon Army, creating the first Dragon Army Bridging Company, which is later renamed as the 1st Dragon Army Engineering Regiment. So during the War of the Lance, Kang and his regiment are mainly located in southern Ansalon, with the Red Dragon Army, and they were responsible for building a huge wicker dragon in Zaxtaros to keep the other Draconians in line. And it was the same wicker dragon that later on Tesselhoff used to scare the Draconians, eventually setting it on fire. Now in the year 352, Kang's regiment is tested in 2 different occasions during battle. The first one, they were tasked to build a bridge across a river to allow the dragon army to reach the other side. All of this of course is done under intense fire from the Whitestone Council's army, as they were encamped on the other side of the river, and eventually defying all odds, they managed to complete the bridge, and as they completed the bridge, fighting to keep the far side from the enemy, they learned that it was simply a decoy for the dragon army, as the main forces were using a different route to attack. This decoy did give them the victory, at the cost of a lot of his men. Now later on, they were tasked at defending a fort from attack. Their force was under the command of a minotaur named Touchpal. Now Kang didn't really like the way this minotaur did battle, so in the eve of the battle itself, they managed to get the minotaur drunk, and during the battle, they launched him from a catapult at a copper dragon, killing the dragon, and eventually they managed to defend the fort. And instead of praising the Draconians for holding the fort, Touchpal got promoted because somehow the Minotaur managed to survive being launched into the air, hitting a dragon and killing the dragon. And this honestly shocked everyone, including Kang. Now following the War of the Lance, the Whitestone Council army hunted down and killed any Draconian that they could put their hands on. Trying to avoid this fate, Kang led his regiment away, and they settled near a Dwarven community called Celebudin that was not too far away from Thorbadin. They maintained a valley between them and the Dwarvish community, and for years they would survive by performing non-lethal raids on the dwarves, and the dwarves would return in kind. Eventually though, the peace would end with the coming of the Chaos War. Kang and 200 of his remaining engineers would join up with the 5th Army of Conquest in their attempt to take the Elven lands. And in that campaign, he meets a human Dark Knight, who he grows to respect and admire. Kang and his engineers would feel like they were a part of the new army, until they realized what they were going to be used for. They were going to dig latrines for the human soldiers. Digging latrines did not sit well with Kang, so he took his troops and left, deserting the 2nd Army and returning to their home. But unfortunately, they arrived just in time to see the dwarves burning down their city. Pissing Kang off immensely, they slaughtered every single one of the dwarves they found in their town, and in retaliation, they went to the dwarven village and they ransacked the place. Throughout the madness, Takesis appears to Kang, sending him on a mission to stop a fire dragon. And while doing so, he came across female draconian eggs hidden deep inside the mountains. After finding the female eggs, Kang realized that they have a future, as up until now, only male draconians could be found on Ansalon. So he decides to take his people and the precious female draconian eggs up north, searching for the lost dwarven city of Tyr. The track was long and perilous, and along the way they were attacked by anyone who viewed them as a threat, eventually calling the eyrie of a tribe of hobgoblins and goblins under the command of a Dark Knight named Zik. And the further north they went, the more the goblins attacked and harassed them, until finally they reached the relative safety of Maranta's fort, where they found many more draconians were held up there under the command of an Auroch draconian named Maranta. It did not take long for Kang to grow disillusioned of the commander and distrustful of the strange draconians called Dunderheads. With the help of the females, Kang eventually overthrows and kills the commander in combat. And while this is going on, a force of 40,000 goblins and hobgoblins start attacking the fort, where a meager 5,000 draconians are stationed. Now Kang and his regiment get together and start talking about a secret weapon they call the Drunken Dragon, which was in fact the same wicker dragon that they created years before. But this time, throughout some magic and engineering, they were able to give it flight. They then stuck inside Drakkhart's heart, which was an extremely powerful artifact, and managed to detonate it in the middle of the goblin army, devastating them all, destroying most of the leadership and killing untold number of goblins and hobgoblins. Any remnant of the army just dispersed and vanished as quickly as they could. So shortly after the battle, Kang and his regiment leave the fort towards Tyr, and the rest of the Draconians follow them. Now it took them another 4 years of travel before they got to their destination, and once they got into the city, Kang relinquishes the command of the military to Slith, and instead becomes the civilian governor of the city. The Dark Knights would attempt time and time again to garner Kang's people in their war of conquest of Ansalon, and each time Kang refused their attempts. Moreover, that during the War of the Soul, Kang, Slith, and their army marched down on Sanction, where they assist in defeating the Dark Knights led by Mina. He is even summoned by the Queen Takesis to witness her return to Krynn, and there he sees her finally die. And after that ordeal, he turns around and goes back to his city. Now over the years, Kang would face threats from within and without. One Draconian named Groot tried to overthrow him, and other enemies from without that tried to attack the city from fear of the Draconians who live within. And throughout all that, Kang understands that he cannot do it alone, so he sends emissaries out to Kalaman, the Great Moors, and even Solamnia, trying to develop relationships with the other civilizations on Ansalon, as that is the only true way for him to better his people. and eventually, hopefully, gain recognition from the other races on Ansalon. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Personally, for me, Kang's Regiment is one of my all-time favorite Dragonlance standalone books. It is written perfectly, it is such a fun and entertaining book. I highly recommend it to any of you who have not yet read it. So I hope you have a lovely day and we will see you in the next video. Toodaloo!